And we are live. Welcome to the last episode of Ask Me About My Draculas, where we explain supernatural books and movies and TV shows. I'm one of your hosts, Kel McDonald, and I make comics that you can find at kelmcdonald.com.
And my name is Ma'at Crook. You can find me on Twitter at Ma'at Crook. And I make comics. And if you are a D&D nerd, I've started putting stuff on the DM's Guild.
And I'm Kelly Fitzpatrick. I color comics, and you can find me on Twitter at Wasted Wings.
All right, so Kelly has picked a movie that neither Ma'at and I have seen. What is it called?
It's called London After Midnight, and it's a classic.
So Ma'at, do you want to guess what it's about first, or should I?
Well, I know it's got Lon Chaney in it. Yep. And just from the title, I picture Lon Chaney in a smoker's jacket with a nice thing of Chardonnay and a big old pipe, talking sexy stuff. I don't know.
That's what I assumed. I assumed it was about the orgy community in London.
Whoa. Lon Chaney as the head of an orgy community?
Yeah.
Very controversial for the 20s.
Yeah. You know, they might not have had all those codes yet.
Do you guys want to see the poster for the movie?
Yeah.
So this is the they have a lot of posters, but I'm pretty sure this is the original theatrical poster.
I recognize that makeup that he has on.
It's really iconic, yeah. So I'm not gonna screen share this entire time, but let's see. I forget how to. Oh, it's on the bottom. Easy. So the thing about this film, you guys are so off.
I'm out.
So the thing about this film, actually, yeah, so it was made in the 20s, and it was destroyed in a fire in the MGM vault in 1967.
Oh, no.
So I looked into that, and there was an electrical malfunction that caused stored nitrate to catch on fire, and it burned a bunch of famous films, and including this one, which is considered the only surviving known print. There's a whole lot of conspiracy theories if there's an actual another print, and people online, there's a whole community that thinks that it still exists and that MGM is holding out on them, and it's a big controversy. But what they did do is there's a bunch of surviving stills, and they had the original script. So the original film was almost 70 minutes, and they took the stills and the script, and they combined them and made a 45-minute version of the film so that it's watchable. And then there was also a spin-off that was done in 1935 that was directed by the same director, Todd Browning.
What was the spin-off called?
Mark of the Vampire, and it had Bela Lugosi playing the vampire instead of Lon Chaney. So, and it wasn't a silent film. So it was a talkie. So yeah. So with that being said, this is, since I clearly have never seen the original because I wasn't alive before the fire.
Yeah. Otherwise, we could have you as a guest on this show for another reason.
Yeah, right? I have only seen the still framed version, which is a little confusing because it's not, it's still framed, so there's no real acting. So in the film, there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's pretty much 8 main characters. And it starts off with an intro explaining that there have been screams and a gunshot after midnight. And they let you know for some reason that it opens up specifically at 1:08 in the morning. No significance to this. And there's a lot of, like, weird things placed in the movie like that, where they get, like, specific, but then a bunch of vague stuff happens, and you're like, wait, how did you gloss over all this stuff that could have been really important? So the main characters are Professor Burke, who is Lon Chaney's character, and he's a private investigator. Lucille Balfour, who's the daughter of Roger Balfour, who's the guy who got killed. Sir James Hamlin, who is the friend and neighbor of Roger Balfour. The butler, who's also called Williams. Arthur Hibbs, who's the nephew of Sir James, so the nephew of the neighbor. Miss Smithson, who's the maid. And then there's there's 2 vampires. There's the Lon Chaney vampire, and then there's a girl who gets called Luna at one point in the movie, but she's only credited as Batgirl in the credits. But she has a name, and she's seen, like, throughout the whole movie, and she's my favorite character. But yeah, they just call her Batgirl in the credits for some reason. And then there's Roger Balfour, the guy who's killed, and the movie's kind of like a murder mystery on, like, who killed this guy, because it's one of these 6 other people, so 7 other people? I don't know. So, yeah. So it opens with Roger Balfour being dead, and they're trying to figure out who killed him. Yeah.
And the obvious ones are the 2 vampires.
Well, so the vampires aren't in the beginning. It just opens up with, like, the daughter. The private investigator's already there, which they don't really explain, because the nephew, Arthur the nephew, like, goes, how did you get here so quick? Because he's like, this murder happened 15 minutes ago. And the nephew's like, how are you here already? And he's like, so the nephew is constantly thinking that the investigator really killed the guy, and the investigator thinks the nephew did it, like, the whole movie. And the nephew's also in love with Roger's, the guy who died's daughter. So there's this whole, like, underlying theme of him being in love with this girl. So when the investigator looks at the murder, and he declares it a suicide because there's a suicide note, but everybody else, especially the neighbor, he's like, there's no way that this guy committed suicide. Like, he wouldn't do this. So they don't believe it. And then it's like an immediate cut to 5 years later. And this is when the vampires get introduced. So there's the girl vampire, Luna, and then the male vampire who never has a name. They just keep referring to him as the guy in the beaver hat. Beaver hat. Because he wears, like, this big top hat thing.
Made out of beaver skin.
Yeah, which I guess you can assume is, instead of felt, I guess.
So he has a furry top hat?
That's what top hats were made out of in the early days.
Okay.
So I'll show you guys. This is the vampire, and this is the daughter, Lucille.
Uh-oh.
So, and this is the main vampire character, Luna, with him.
Ooh.
She's so cool.
Yeah.
They credit her as Batgirl. What does she do that's bat-ish?
Well, so the whole thing is that they keep showing you, because it's a silent film, right? So they always put words up on the screen for all the dialogue, but then they also start telling you vampire lore related things. And one of them is that vampires turn into bats and hide in, I forgot the wording that they use, but it's basically like places that are like kind of unholy kind of places during the day so that sunlight can't reach them. So yeah, the lore is that if you're a vampire, you can't go in the sun, and you turn into a bat during the day, and
in Mark of the Vampire, there's a clip of the remade character, and she has awesome bat wings on.
Well, he has, in his outfit, let me scroll down, he's got like bat wings on his outfit too.
Oh, awesome.
So, and then the makeup, the makeup was really iconic at the time because he had to like wear these, he made the monocle, he's wearing like a monocle style devices in his eyes with wire clips to like enlarge his eyes and make them massive. And then obviously like he's got fake teeth in. But I mean that was like a really big deal at the time. So these are the other characters in the house too. So you can see Lucille, the maid, well, they call him Professor, but he's the inspector, and then the other guy whose name I can't remember. But those are most of the main cast, and then these two guys you really don't ever see in the movie. I'll get to that in a second. But I have notes because the movie is, again, it's really confusing. So, which I feel like it wouldn't be as bad if you could see the live action version. But,
here's the picture of the
whoa,
the bat wing.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, her costume is not as cool. So when they cut to 5 years later, there's the couple of main characters pull up in a carriage, and they see Sir James, the neighbor. He lives next door. They see the vampires, and they end up calling Burke, the inspector that was at the murder, on the vampires because they're like, well, these people, they see them signing a lease to move into the Balfour house, which was that photo with those two dudes. That's like him signing the lease. So they're like, okay, this is suspicious. This guy and this other girl, like, they're crazy and they look like vampires, and now they're signing the lease on this guy's house. They must be the people who murdered him and made it look like a suicide. So he calls the original inspector and makes these claims, and the inspector comes out and he's like, you're crazy. Like, why do you think this happened? Like, why do you think they're vampires? Like, vampires don't exist. And Hibbs, like the nephew of the guy, like, he starts losing his mind and starts reading all these vampire lore books, which is when the bat thing comes up. And he's like, no, you need to investigate this. And so the inspector he's like, oh, okay, I'll investigate. And he looks at the lease, and because somehow he gets a hold of the lease, and the lease is signed in Roger Balfour's signature. And they're like, wait a minute, Roger Balfour has been dead for 5 years. Maybe there's another Roger Balfour. And the daughter and everybody's like, no, that's his signature. Like, they faked this guy's signature. So clearly they could fake the suicide note. They must be murderers. The guy's like, okay, well,
So is extreme forgery powers a vampire skill that we just don't know about?
Or is it Balfour? is Lon Chaney playing undead Balfour?
They think that he's not the inspectors thinks they're crazy for thinking that these two people are vampires or even murderers. They're just a couple that moved in next door, basically, is his kind of feeling. And he's more convinced that the nephew of the neighbor is the guy who killed them. So that's why he comes back to investigate. And after the lease, they're like, okay, well, I won't be. I forget if it's either the. Oh man, what's the dude's name? This is why I wrote their names down. Sir James. So I forget if it's Sir James or if it's his nephew. But they one of them is like, I won't be satisfied until we check out this guy's tomb. So they go to the cemetery and they check the tomb and there's no body. And the investigator's like, okay, this is weird. Now we really have to investigate. So the next thing that they do is when they get back, the maid stops them and says, like, oh my God, this stranger in a beaver hat just attacked us in Lucille's bedroom, and I saved Lucille by locking her in a closet, and everybody's totally cool with it. Like, it's a normal thing. Lock this girl in a closet. And then they look out the window and they see the vampire lady, Luna, and they see the Lon Chaney vampire character together in the garden. And the whole group that's like the first time the whole group sees the strangers living next door. And they decide they're going to stay up all night and they'll do something about it the next morning. So they're like totally freaked out, and at this point everybody's convinced they're vampires. So when they go over to the house the next morning, they don't see anybody in the house. And when they're leaving, they look up and they see a bat hanging from a chandelier. The two looking at each other like, nah, this can't be what we think it is. Like, we've got to be crazy. We can't like shoot a bat or anything. And then they just leave, and they just leave it there because they're like thinking it's too absurd to do something about a bat. So then the inspector takes Lucille aside and tells her that he really firmly doesn't believe that her father's committed suicide. And he's like, you gotta trust me, do whatever I tell you to do. And Arthur, the nephew, comes by and he's like, what did he just talk to you about? And she's like, oh, nothing, I can't talk to you about it, sorry. Like, it's nothing kind of thing. Because she's not sure if he's actually a suspect or not, even though she's like in love with him. So then the inspector takes Sir James aside. They go back to the house at night, and they see a whole group of vampires and a man that looks exactly like Lucille's father that was shot. But then Luna sees them, and it's like, oh shit. So you run back to the house, and then a little thing pops up telling you more vampire lore, and it's saying that if you put wreaths made of roses with a drawn sword in the center around the keyholes, it'll protect you. It's like a ward, which I've never heard that before.
Neither have I, but it sounds cool.
It looked so cool in the movie, and it's all over the windows. I wish I had a screenshot of it, but they put it all over the windows, too, so you just see all these swords with, like, rose wreaths, and it's really cool. So then, this is amazing. This is where the movie really turns, like, super weird. So Arthur and the professor, they're both, like, the inspector guy, they're both yelling at each other over the murder in a separate room away from Lucille's bedroom that's now protected. And for some reason, the inspector, who's played by Lon Chaney, he can all of a sudden use hypnosis to put Arthur into a trance, and he tries to find out if he's murdered, if he really has murdered Balfour. Like, why he didn't do this 5 years ago?
It took him 5 years to get training for it. He just got his certificate that morning.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, okay, this is like an unexplained thing that this guy now has. And so he uses hypnosis, then he just leaves the dude there in that room, which is like sort of his office or something, and just like leaves him there in a trance, and then he goes and like he goes into Arthur's room, and obviously Arthur isn't there because he's in the other guy's room in a trance, and there's a shot fired, and Burke, the inspector, he's been hurt, but they don't dwell on that at all. It's just like a thing that happened. And they're like, where's Arthur? And he's like, I don't know, but he does because he's in a trance back in his room.
Liar.
So then he goes and he wakes him up, and then they all go to check on Lucille, and the wards didn't do shit, and Lucille's gone, and her room's been, like, ransacked, and it's, like, super messed up. There's, like, bedding and, like, chairs on the ground and just, like, a real mess. And so she's been abducted by the vampires, and they've taken her back to her old house, which is, you know, their neighbors. So, Sir James, Burke pulls Sir James aside, and he tells him, like, to go to the house or whatever. And then when he's at the house, he's met out in front of the door by the Lon Chaney vampire, right? Who's unnamed. And that's when the vampire puts him into a hypnotic trance and makes him think it's 5 years ago, like the night of the murder before the murders happened. Okay. Because, yeah, it's very confusing. So
see what that would achieve.
So the idea is that if Sir James is really the murderer, then, because now he knows Arthur isn't, so he's like, oh, it must be his father or his uncle, and so he puts him in a trance, thinking that his logic being that if we make him reenact the sequence under hypnosis, then he'll do the same actions over again, and so it'll prove he's the murderer because he'll try and kill the guy.
Somebody.
Right. Okay, wait, I'll get into this. So then Arthur breaks, at the same time, Arthur's like on his own mission because he doesn't know, you know, Burke hasn't explained anything to anybody. So Arthur's just like, oh my god, the love of my life has just been kidnapped. I've got to go rescue her. So he runs into the house, and he's caught by Burke and a couple of, like, detectives and locked away. And Burke, so this is, again, very confusing. It turns out that the Beaver Hat Man, the Lon Chaney vampire, is really Inspector Burke, which is why he has hypnosis powers. And he was aided at times. He made Smithson, the maid, is really his assistant detective. She's not really a maid. She's been a detective the entire time.
Ooh. And
the mysterious young woman or whatever is just Luna is really a stage performer working for the police. So he's really, like, he's been going back and forth, changing between this, like, vampire character. So they say he's not really a vampire, but it's super unclear, like, what is actually happening, because why does he have hypnosis powers? And then what they do is they all change into their outfits from the night that Roger was murdered, and they recreate the actions that, you know, the whole actions and, like, the same sort of dialogue and everything the night that he died. And there is some guy who looks exactly like Roger Burke playing Roger Burke. Never explained who this guy is, how he looks exactly like Roger Burke, and it is the actor that had played Roger Burke playing the double of Roger Burke. And it's also never explained where the body went from the cemetery, because they took it out of the grave to, to like set this whole thing up, and put this whole plan into motion. So it's like really confusing, and you're like, how are you glossing over all of these things? And like, it also isn't apparently in the actual live action movie. They show Lon Chaney changing between the professor and putting on all the makeup to dress up as like the vampire character, but they don't go over that at all in the still framed version. So I've just found out about that from reading. So they go through the whole play of everybody being dressed up as that night, and it turns out Sir James actually did shoot and kill Balfour, and he held the gun to Roger Balfour's head and said, like, write this note this way and then sign it, because he's really in love with Lucille the entire time. And then it's made mention by the detective that he was probably going to take out his nephew next to get to Lucille. So like, if they wouldn't have caught him, then he was already like plotting to kill his nephew, which is like, what? Because he's like this old man who's like in love with this young lady. It's ultra creepy. So yeah, that's sort of how the movie ends, and then it hints that Arthur and Lucille are going to get married. Questions?
I have no idea what's going on.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
So they're not actually vampires. Unless he is really a vampire detective.
Is he maybe the first vampire detective?
He's got hypnosis powers, and I know the movie was originally based off of a story by the director, Todd Browning. I think it was called The Hypnotist. But yeah, it's unclear whether or not he really truly is a vampire, but they make it seem like he isn't, and that it's just all an act to scare this guy sort of into finding out who the killer is.
It's really elaborate.
Yeah! And I read some complaints on like IMDb and a bunch of like movie forums talking about how people aren't sure if the movie is that confusing because it's still frame, or if it's just poorly written. But what I will say to give this movie credit on top of the like amazing makeup is it was Lon Chaney did 10 movies with this director, Todd Browning, and this was the highest grossing out of all the films. So a lot of people saw it.
Yeah. So it must have been at least good enough for that time period.
Yeah.
That they liked it enough to keep going.
Yeah, but I don't know, it's so iconic. And like bands, like there's a band that's named after the movie, which is how I found out about the movie. And it's just sort of like this weird cult classic and a lot of famous iconography with the Lon Chaney's makeup, so.
Yeah. Yay! I hope, like the Metropolis movies, they found more complete versions of the movie over, like, several times over the years. I hope they find one for this one.
Yeah, I looked into the movies, some of the other stuff that was lost, and apparently there was some Tom and Jerry and Tex Avery shorts that they lost, some Three Stooges stuff, an uncut version of a Laurel and Hardy short called Blotto and Our Gang. And then, yeah, so a lot of movies that I haven't heard of, probably because they were destroyed. So it's pretty sad, but I mean, what can you can't do anything.
Yeah. So where did you end up seeing the still movie?
You can actually find it. It's easy to find online. It's all uploaded on YouTube.
Those silent movies are now public domain, so they're like up on YouTube entirely.
Yeah, they're on YouTube. And someone uploaded the whole in lower quality. It was originally shown on TV before they put it in like a DVD box set. They released it on TV, and there's like this whole intro with this guy talking on Vio about how the film was destroyed and stuff like that too. So yeah.
Yay! Would you go see it if they showed it at a movie theater? Would you go see it again?
I don't know if I would go see it in a movie theater, but I would definitely see it again if they found even a sliver of like the original footage, because that would be super interesting to me. Or even if they found more stills and made it more of like an animatic, you know, to like extend the movie a little bit more, I would go see that. But in the current state that it's in, it needs work.
Yeah.
It makes me really want to see Mark of the Vampire, which you've seen that?
I just went and did a search on Google for it. I have definitely heard of it, and it's possible that I saw it ages ago, but because the actress that plays the Luna character looks super familiar to me.
That was Edna Titchener.
Yeah.
She looks, and then it's
a lot like maybe Morticia Addams took her look from her.
That's why I want to do special eye makeup. Yeah, and the movie poster, it says Marceline Day and Conrad Nagel, which were the people who played Lucille and Arthur, the couple, the young couple, basically, of the whole film. And they were apparently, like, really well-known actors, actresses, so on top of, obviously, Lon Chaney was, like, the highlight of that. But, yeah, I also, the reason why I was interested in seeing this was because I really liked his Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
He like, his makeup, he was
a master.
No.
He took he went through a lot of pain to do that.
Like wires in his eyes. Oh,
yeah.
God. But he apparently he had like a famous makeup bag or something too, and that was seen in the like one of the backgrounds of like scenes of this movie. So, and they did that as like a fun thing for people who were big fans of his. So I was like, that's cool. So because he did like a lot of his own makeup.
Yeah, I think he did all his own makeup.
I bet he had. But yeah, he was a master of his time for sure.
Yeah. Well, I do wish that we could have talked like on this show. I wish we had enough time to talk about all the Universal monsters and the more of the old silent movies and even some later Hammer films and stuff. Wish we'd been able to talk more about.
Kelly, you got any questions?
I'm still very perplexed by this whole movie. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, it is really like a convoluted kind of like
Yeah, I'm just
roundabout.
sitting here kind of like, what the fuck did I just listen to?
Yeah, and it's also like my first question is like, well, if he did that to, well, first off, the first one was, what did they do with the body, and then who was this body double? Like, those are the first two.
And the police officer took 5 years to plan this whole thing.
And then, and then like the other thing is if he had the hypnosis power and used it on Arthur, and then he went and did it on his uncle, like, why did they do the whole setup at the end? Why didn't he just ask him the same questions he asked Arthur? Like, doing the whole like reenactment was like really unnecessary.
Yeah.
On top of everything else, which is just ridiculous. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is fun. It is a fun movie. It's just a shame it's lost to time.
Mhm. It's nice that the stills exist. If we're gonna lose a whole film, it's nice that we have some piece of it.
Yeah, and the stills are pretty high quality too. So it's not like that's not the problem with watching it. And I liked the music, and I tried to find out about the music. It looks like they used different music in the original film than they did in the still version. And in the still version, they hired out a company to make the music, but it works really well, and it goes between like a bunch of string instruments and stuff to like kind of old-timey kind of piano. So it's like very fitting, you know, especially for the time period. So
does it have it just like the still film shows like the still, and then the next slide would be like dialogue or explanation, and then a still?
They hired people to like pan in and out and kind of around to make you feel like it's moving more. And at one point, when they show like the outside of the house, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't all still images, because the way that they did the zoom in, it felt very similar to just like panning in with a normal camera on. So that's really well done. And then when they're showing faces and it gets more dramatic, like they're zoom in on faces and stuff too, and then they cut back from it. So they tried to make it appear a little more dynamic than just like slides, you know. But yeah, it does cut to like the slide with the words for sure.
Yeah. And are those original, or those are what people have figured out from eyewitness reports of what the movie was about?
They had the script, so the script didn't get destroyed, so it is the original script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those slides, I don't know if it's the same font and the same slides, but I mean, it looks original, but it is the same script. So that, I mean, that's why you do get like this. Oh, I have to find the dialogue. Hold on. Some of the dialogue is just, it's kind of amazing. Oh man, I wish I had the scene where they were pulling up with the carriage, because all of a sudden they have like a ridiculous British accent. Like,
so someone overdubbed it?
I wish. So like the lady, she like the maid, she goes, I locked her in there. Oh sir, it was, and then like apostrophe horrible. Like, it was horrible.
You're trying to write out the accent.
Yeah, and then it said, Miss Lucille was bidding me good night, and then, sir, I screamed and frightened him. Out of the windows he flew, like, apostrophe E. So it's like she's supposed to sound, like, really Cockney or something. And she's the only one who talks like that. Smithson, have you been drinking? And she's like, oh, no, sir. If I have, I choke on the next one. Like,
Oh, wow.
it's ridiculous, like, how much they play up, like, she's lower class compared to the other people via her accent. So,
Yeah.
even though she's really the secret detective, you know? So.
Maybe part of her secret detective disguise is the terrible accent.
The terrible accent, yeah.
And no one else notices that it's a terrible accent.
No, they're just like...
They're all just like, oh, poor people.
Yeah.
You really forget that it's set in London? Because they never show, well, at least in the still version, they never show London. They're just like, they mention that it's in London at the beginning, and then the title of the movie is London After Midnight, but, like, because it's a silent film, like, you can't, other than the maid, you can't tell anybody's British, so it's very strange. Like, there doesn't seem to be a particularly special reason why it's set in London at all. I guess it's just a cool time.
Is it an American movie?
I'm pretty sure it's an American movie because it was MGM, and Lon Chaney wasn't he American?
I'm not sure.
Let's find out. Yes, he was born in Colorado Springs, and he died in Los Angeles. Seems very American.
Did he die of lead poisoning?
Hold on.
Oh, he had lung cancer.
Oh, that's really sad. Oh, yeah, because he was only 47 when he died.
Oh my gosh, that's so young.
Throat hemorrhage.
Because he had inhaled artificial snow made out of cornflakes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well, according to Wikipedia, which created a serious infection, so his lung cancer got exacerbated, and he just got worse and worse until his throat hemorrhaged.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it wasn't his makeup. It wasn't his movie makeup that killed him. It was movie props that helped speed up his life.
That's crazy. Oh yeah, it said he developed pneumonia and then got lung cancer. Wow.
All right. So some of the things that I did for our last episode is I went through as many of the old, like I looked through all of our past discussions, and I tried to watch as many of them as I could.
That's fun.
That I had not seen yet. So I ended up watching Vampire in Brooklyn. We talked about that last time.
You like it?
Oh, that movie's so silly.
I can see what you were talking about. That Eddie Murphy really wanted to do a serious role. He did, basically.
Yeah, it's basically all the scenes with him are pretty much serious, and then everything else is goofy as shit.
And that plot hole that there's no reason why he would actually need a vampire wife, but
yeah,
other than him just saying he needed a vampire wife, there's no why to that.
Yeah.
But it was pretty. Like, yeah. It was shot well. Dialogue just seemed just fine for it being a comedy.
And what else did you watch?
Vampire Academy.
No, you didn't.
I did. Did I watch the whole thing? I did. I watched the whole entire movie. Yep. And
you're like so bad I couldn't remember it.
Yes. And I had forgotten that y'all had said that it was a movie and not a TV show because it
looks like it should be a TV show.
It looks like a TV show. And the entire time I was watching it, I was going, wow, this is a really long episode. And then
it was over.
and it was over, and I went, oh, it was a movie.
It is a book series, too, so it does keep going in the books.
I got pretty upset that they butchered a Bauhaus cover.
Was that Churches? Who did that?
I don't know, but it was awful.
I think it was Churches, but I was telling Kel about that before you signed on, about how, like, I thought that cover wasn't bad, and so it gave me hope that the movie would maybe have promise. I was like, whoa, Bauhaus, all right, good movie. And then I was like,
no, that's awful. The teen and adult attraction thing was so creepy. So super creepy. I watched Hemlock Grove.
That's the worst.
It's bad. I haven't seen it all, but I got through like 2 seasons or something.
That makes me so mad. I'm mad every time I hear about it.
Yeah, I did not finish it. I did not finish it. It seemed like they wanted to, like it was someone who maybe was a kid when Twin Peaks came out, and then they wanted to do this very soap opera mystery murder thing, but with vampires.
And with all the racism and sexism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised to find out that the book does not have that much racism in it. So whoever made the show said, you know what this story needs is racism.
Does it have the incestuous...
Yes, it does. It has all the other sexism, horrible, problematic stuff. It just doesn't have as much racism.
So those... Go ahead.
I was going to say, does anything that, like... I felt like that show, nothing ever really happened.
A lot of very confusing things happened, and a lot of very racist things happened, and a lot of very sexist things happened.
Just like how they treated the sister.
Every woman with a name dies.
Oh, wow. So it's like Supernatural in that way.
No, because they also managed to get a horrible, mystical, pregnant rape baby in there, too. Supernatural hasn't done that yet because none of the women live long enough to have that happen.
Yeah.
So Supernatural is beating Hemlock Grove simply because they haven't done that one awful plot point.
Well, I'm not saying anything, isn't it?
Yeah. They're just beating Hemlock Grove by the skin of their teeth. So I also started watching A Girl Walks Home Alone.
Oh, I like that.
And I haven't finished it because it's hard for me to find time to fit in subtitled stuff.
Mm.
It's pretty... As long as I'm not writing, I can have something on in the background.
Did you watch any of the stuff that was reviewed before you started co-hosting?
Let's see. I didn't know how to get Vampire Nights.
Vampire Nights is on Hulu.
Wait, is that anime?
Yeah, it's an anime. Yeah. It's a really bad anime.
Okay, I think I've seen it.
Molly and I watched it and still don't know what happened in it.
I wrote everything down out of order, so I don't know. Like Carpe Jugulum, Cirque du Freak, Vampire in Love, Rivers of London, Penny Dreadful, Captain Kronos I wasn't able to watch.
Are there a couple of things that you didn't watch, or...?
I didn't watch anything on Hulu.
Okay.
I didn't watch Sleepy Hollow, the TV show, and I didn't read Stupidest Angel. Oh, there's also... Is Dead Like Me the...
Yeah, that one is, they're all like Grim Reapers.
But it's a lady, right? A girl?
The main character's a girl, yeah, a teen girl.
I love that show.
I didn't check that one off, but I did watch it. It's like, it's not shot as like like they didn't spend a ton of money on the cinematography. It doesn't seem like, right?
Mhm.
But
Is
it
it
was
the same
pretty
people who
good.
did Wonder Falls?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, both of those shows, they're great.
Mm. I liked that. I didn't end up watching Daybreakers or Dead and Loving It or the Teen Wolf TV show. Um, so that's everything else I think that I watched.
Did you watch Vampire Diaries?
Oh, um, I thought I did. Wasn't that on Netflix at
Yes,
some
it is
point?
on Netflix.
Yeah. Then I did, and I've forgotten it.
There's a lot of it. It's like a soap opera on fast forward
Yeah.
because it's going through all the like crazy soap opera plots, but like in 2 episodes rather than a whole season.
Is there the evil twin?
Yes, there is. And then there's a long lost like I'm secretly adopted, and then there's evil like biological parent for the person that was secretly adopted. There's evil twins for multiple characters to the point where in one of the later seasons the bad boy brother vampire goes, man, if doppelgangers keep showing up, I'm gonna have to learn how to spell it. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of like stuff like that, secret
Yeah.
relatives, and there's this secret government organization, and what about Being Human?
I had seen that. I prefer the British version over the American version.
Good on you.
Hmm.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah. It did not end up on my top 10 though. Oh wait, no, it ended up as number 10 on my top 10. The British version.
I really liked the last season of the British version because I thought they were gonna go all initiative on Buffy like ish, and then the first episode of that season is like, you have this whole secret organization with no oversight and unlimited budget, so we're cutting your whole department. Um,
iZombie is on my list is number 9.
that one's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I haven't finished. I've perused the comic. So I don't know how it compares to the comic.
The comic is way different. I kind of like the show a little bit better.
Mhm. Bunnicula is number 8 for me.
Bunnicula is great.
Mhm. Mhm. And Buffy is number 7.
Yeah.
Angel, though, is 3.
We've never actually talked about Angel on the show.
No, we haven't. Oh, did we mention it? Did y'all mention it talking about Buffy, though?
Because it was the first one's all about Buffy, and I was like, maybe we should save like Angel for like a special thing like the 50th episode, so we never got to Angel.
Oh, okay.
But finding somebody who hasn't seen it or like know about it is hard.
I preferred Angel over Buffy.
I did too.
I did too, but I think part of it is because Angel, they had already figured out kind of the formula with Buffy.
Well, it's also Buffy is definitely more rooted in YA, and because of that, like things are a little bit simpler and more straightforward.
Except for her relationship with Angel.
Well, like, so it's more like, and you can sort of see it in the way they always pick their big bad for the shows, is Buffy always has one big bad that she defeats by the end of the season, and then she is victorious and then moves on, and then there's a new big bad and she defeats that one, whereas Angel constantly is battling Wolfram and Hart.
Yeah.
Never wins.
Organization, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like the more complicated you're trying to do what's right, but like there's no way to actually win-win.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you do
It's
things
like,
that with good intentions, but
yeah.
you end up becoming just as bad as the bad you're fighting.
Yeah, and so then, like, I also like, so it seems like the best way to sum it up is Buffy is there are no easy answers, and then Angels is there are no answers.
Yeah.
And then Seth Green shows up.
And then he leaves.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for both Buffy and Angel, my least favorite characters are the main characters.
Um,
I love Angel.
Connor's my least favorite character.
Connor is down pretty low, yeah.
Connor is my least favorite character on Angel, and then Dawn is my least favorite character on Buffy.
Oh,
Yeah, I used to
man.
really hate it, but when I rewatched it, like, I feel a little more empathetic because it's like, man, she just got everything thrown at her and she's a young girl. Like,
I didn't like Dawn because I didn't mind her the first season she was in because she had like a reason to be there. So I didn't like the seasons afterward, after season 5 with Dawn, because it seemed like Dawn was just hanging around and she was all the things I didn't like about Buffy's character, but none of the things that sort of redeemed Buffy's character.
She wasn't old enough to get those redemption parts yet. Both of them were teenagers, and I found them both to be annoying, just like teenagers can sometimes be annoying.
Yeah.
My own teenage self included on that list.
I think Buffy's mom I disliked more than Dawn. I still cried during the death thing, though.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Even rewatching it years later, I was like, oh no, this is the episode, and I still cried.
Yeah.
So what was your number one?
Number one, Nosferatu.
Really? That's a great.
It just was. There was nothing else like it except for a book that someone could have taken inspiration from, and I just think that they did such a great spooky job.
What was number 2?
The Addiction with Lily Taylor.
Number 3 you said was Angels, so what's number 4?
Lost Boys.
Did you also watch Silver Bullet? Because that was the episode we did the Corey Haim double feature.
Yeah, but that didn't end up on my list.
Yeah.
And like any top 10 list, this is very much telling of me because when Lost Boys came out, that really spoke to my teen self that totally would be all go ahead and bite me. I'll be with you.
Yeah, so I was talking. Mike, who was our guest for that episode, said that she never will make fun of teen girls that love the shit out of Twilight because of how much she loved Lost Boys as a teen.
Yes, that's a good point.
Where is Interview with the Vampire on that list?
Which one?
We never talked about it on the show because people have seen it.
Which one?
Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, yeah. No.
That's Lost Boys to you is Interview to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a bit older by the time Interview with a Vampire came out.
I really like the director's commentary on Interview with a Vampire because it's just them talking about all the detail and the work that they put into the set, and they'll talk about that for like 20 minutes, and then they always end it with, and then we had to burn it down.
Yeah.
I remember at the time that it came out, it was pretty good, but since then I haven't really had a desire to rewatch it.
So what was after?
Dresden Files is number 5.
Yeah. because that's good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'm waiting for the next book.
Yeah. You should, in the meantime, check out the October Day books that I've been reading, which is about a half-fairy detective lady, and it's kind of like the Dresden Files, but without the gross sexism.
Oh, okay, awesome. And the main character is?
She's half-fairy, and she's solving fairy crimes. Like, right now, a mermaid's kid was kidnapped, and the one I'm reading now, a mermaid's kid the Queen Mermaid's son was kidnapped, and she has to find them to prevent a war between the land fairies and the sea fairies. And her love interests are a Silky and a Kate Sith, who is the king of all the cats.
I did not know about Selkies until meeting Spay Monster.
Silkies are great.
Silkies are awesome.
And so,
oh, go ahead.
So that's a fun series also because even though it's a female character, both her love interests aren't like trying to be overprotective and gross to her.
Are they jealously fighting each other?
No, they're not, and they're supposed to, rather than doing the good boy bad boy thing, they're more different aspects of her personality. So it's like the Silky guy is more dependable, and the cat guy is more let's get shit done.
Yeah.
So it's just her picking like which one she prefers. And right now, Cat Guy's winning because even though he like disappears for months at a time, whenever he's around, he like does some really cool shit for her.
Awesome. So my last thing is number 6, Late Phases.
Yeah.
Which was it was the one where
retirement home werewolves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good.
Is it a comedy?
No.
Could be.
Did you end up seeing it, Kel?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
I liked it a lot. And then what else after that?
So then it was Buffy, Bunnicula, iZombie, and Man-Human.
Did you keep going with the list, or did
No, but I made a list of things that I really wish we had time to talk about. What were some things you wanted to talk about? You wish that we could have talked about?
Well, Angel, I also really,
Have you guys read this?
no.
No, but I've seen it on the shelf before.
I
What do
really
you
like
think?
this. It's Fight Club.
We don't talk about comics on the show.
But you are promoting it though.
I'm promoting it. I really enjoyed reading it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
Have you ever seen Night Watch and Day Watch, Kel? Or
Oh,
Kelly?
that was the one where I was telling you I was about to listen to the audiobook. So
Yeah, I want to listen to the audiobook too. I haven't done that. What about you, Kelly? Have you seen those?
Night Watch sounds familiar?
They're both Russian movies.
But
Day
no,
Watch is the sequel. They're both on Netflix. I strongly suggest them.
I'm sad that we never talked about any good vampire anime because I felt like every time we dipped into anime, it turned out to be train wreck animes.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to talk about at least one good vampire anime.
I watched Vampire Hunter D back in the 90s, and I can't remember a whole lot about it.
I feel like Vampire Hunter D is a lot of spectacle and not a whole lot of plot.
Okay.
It's really pretty and really well animated, but it's more like vampires fight.
Hellsing.
And what was that?
Same thing with Hellsing. It's
Oh.
look at these cool fights.
Yeah.
Same thing with Dance in the Vampire Bund, but that's like kind
that
of
one has a pinch of pedophilia in it.
pedophilia. That's what I was about to say. But Blood C is really good, and Blood Plus, it's based off of Blood Plus. Blood the Last Vampire. Blood C and Blood Plus are good.
Yeah.
Blood sea as in a ocean?
C as in the
letter
letter.
C.
It's a pun. It's a pun because in Japanese, C means is pronounced she, which means death.
Okay.
Yeah.
We never went over American Werewolf in London,
Oh, that would have been great too.
and we never went over the original Wolfman.
Yeah, like I said, the
Wolfman.
Universal monsters. We didn't do any Universal monsters.
The original Wolfman was a lot better than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Lon
Chaney Jr.
Yeah.
The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price and the book it was based on. I had wanted to talk about that too.
I haven't seen any of the movies that it's based off of.
The Will Smith ones are so disappointing. But Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price is to me, it was really good. But I also really love Vincent Price.
And then, I
Oh!
finished a good book called Sunshine, and that one was really interesting.
I read that one recently.
Yeah, that would have been nice to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. And The Girl with All the Gifts.
Have
either of y'all read that one?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
It's really good. It's a different take on a zombie thing. Instead of like a virus or a plague or just being bitten by a zombie, this is that parasite fungus the ants get, and it takes over the brain.
In The Last of Us, the video game is based off that sort of fungus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So The Girl with All the Gifts is about that. And Tyler just finished listening to it. He thought it was really good too. On Audible. Okay, Lair of the White Worm. Have either of y'all seen Lair of the White Worm?
I haven't even heard of it.
Oh my gosh. Let me share some of the oops. Wait. Now where'd my window go? Let me share with you some imagery from Lair of the White Worm. It is grand. Here we go. There. Can y'all see that?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's got some sexual parts in it. Some very creepy, wrong sexual parts in it.
Is it
It's 80s, and look at who the other main character is.
What? You just reminded me. Did you guys talk about Bowie's vampire movie?
Yes, yes.
That's for me.
Oh, did I not put that on my top 10? That should have been on my top 10. That would have bumped out. Yes. That would have bumped out my number 10 for sure. Okay.
Oh, did you watch any True Blood, Matt?
Oh yeah, I watched True Blood when it came out, and quickly stopped watching it. It is not for me.
I'm trying to think of stuff that we went over that you weren't a co-host for.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with the game Castlevania?
Yes, yes I do.
Oh, I have that. Yeah.
It did not make it to my top 10, but it is a bit of a nostalgia thing for me. But other than that, other than it being a nostalgia thing, I didn't have any good reason to put it on the list. The Breed was one I wanted to talk about too.
Yeah.
The Breed, the vampire one with Christopher Lambert and Bailing. I like that one. It's very like, it's one of those that's shot very blue. Like they put like a blue tint on almost everything.
Oh, what would have been fun to talk about is there was this TV show I watched in middle school that like clearly no one else watched because it's impossible to find images of it on the internet. Or there's like one website that has pictures, and the rest of the internet has promptly forgotten that this existed. There's a TV show called Big Wolf on Campus where he's a werewolf and his nerdy friend, and they fight evil, and each monster is based off a different classic movie. So there's always a monologue where the nerdy friend says, "It's just like in this movie," and all about the movie they stole the plot from.
That.
Wait! Oh my gosh! I recognize this. What else did that actor play in?
No, they're all not in anything.
Are you sure? I'm gonna look it up on IMDb.
Like, I looked it up, and like the guy who played the main character has like one role in one episode of Vampire Diaries, and that's like the only other thing he's been in.
Short-lived careers.
Yeah.
So you reminded me of two things. One, Monster Squad, the 80s movie. And then the other one is the classic anime series Gegege no Kitaro. And there's like a couple of vampire episodes in that too, but that's all about yokai and like various ghouls and all around the world.
What's yokai?
Yokai are like Japanese monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they.
Is that yokai means demons?
Yeah, so they're basically kind of like Japan's version of like classic monsters, and they all sort of exist to like. Most of them exist to teach you a lesson, but some of them just exist. There's like an umbrella yokai. Like, it makes no sense for it to exist, but it does. So, like, pretty much anything can be, like, possessed and inhabited by spirit or something. But, yeah, I think it's comes from Shinto. Could be wrong. But, yeah, so that whole show is about this little kid who I'm trying to remember how he can see all of them, but he's trying to like unite like the human world with the yokai world or something. I don't know. I think he might be half demon or he's one. I don't know. So.
What's that one called again?
Gegege no Kitaro. So like, gegege is like the sound of like creaking boards in Japanese, and Kitaro is the main character, and he's got like a little eyeball friend, and it's been around for, I feel like, forever.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go, 1960.
Wow.
Yeah. And the guy who created it died a couple years ago. It's sad.
Yeah.
But it's super well known to the point where like they put the theme song on like taiko games and like rhythm games in Japan because like everybody just kind of knows it.
Because it's been around for so long.
Around for so long, yeah. So it's like you can play like the Gegege no Kitaro round, or like the other ones are like Doraemon or Anpanman. It's like a classic like weird sort of like children's character in Japan, yeah. But that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Is there anything else y'all would have wanted to talk about? Or want to suggest for people to watch or read?
Do you guys do Anne Rice?
Huh? No, we haven't done any Anne Rice because we both read it or we know the general gist of it, but we don't know a lot about it because I stopped after book 3.
And I watched all the movies, even Queen of the Damned. I actually rewatched Queen of the Damned recently.
I hate that so much.
So I finished the first 3 books, and then I started the 4th book, and then the main character started to talk about little boys he had in his basement, and I closed the book, and I was like, I am done with all things related to Anne Rice.
I have read almost all of them, as far as the main Vampire Chronicles. There's like the Mayfair Witches and stuff like that, and I'm currently in the I haven't read the Mayfair Witch stuff. I decided to skip ahead a little bit because once the Mayfair Witches get introduced, I was like, I don't really give a damn about them, and then I found out that the new book basically comes after Mimnock, so I didn't have to read the other 3 books that came after Mimnock to understand the current book, which is all about Lestat, which is the only character that I give a shit about.
Yeah.
And I am enjoying the hell out of it, and I'm like 3/4 of the way through it, and I need to finish it, but I'm liking it so far.
Wasn't it Lestat that was the rock and roll superstar in Queen of the Damned? I thought so.
Yes, but
that was such a stupid premise.
The vampire Lestat, and then it's a whole nightmare. That movie is when you try and relate it to like the books, it's a nightmare because it's like that movie shouldn't even be called that name. Like it doesn't.
It's 2 books put together.
Yes, it doesn't make sense.
No, I kind of understand why they're like, if we're going to adapt one movie, we have to adapt the other into a movie, because the Vampire Lestat ends on a cliffhanger, and then, like, goes instantly into Queen of the Damned. Like, it picks up as soon as the cliffhanger's done.
It would have been, like, it would have been so much better if they just would have done it like how they did in the books, which is what you always hear. But it would have been so much funnier if, like, Lestat just was like, hey guys, let me tell you the real story, you know, like what happens in the books, and then it was like Lestat's side of the story plus some other shit, you know. I don't know.
I feel like
such a whiny
good movie.
I think it would have been, because it would have been. That's why I like the second book so much, is because he's like, hey, all that shit you thought you knew about me, like, this is the real me, and, like, fuck that guy.
Like, what you need to keep in mind is they're making this movie, like, 10 years after the Interview with the Vampire, so there's no
that's the problem.
People saw Interview with the Vampire going to see this movie. So basically, the Vampire Lestat does not work on its own, because you either need all the stuff that's going, this is what really happened during Interview with the Vampire, or you need to, because that's the first half of the book, and then the second half of the book is basically the first act of Queen of the Damned. So
yeah.
She feels so strongly about it. You heard her pounding on her desk, right?
No, honestly, the number one thing that bothers me about that movie, other than the sex, because that is not a part of that universe.
Are you sure it's not a part of that universe? Because there's a guy who has little boys in his basement.
Yes, yeah. They cannot have, the penis cannot get erect when you are a vampire.
Because you're dead?
Yes. So there are roundabout ways of whatever. Anyway, so there's not really sex in that universe. There's sex that happens in the books, but it's when he goes in, like, Lestat goes into another guy's body and kind of becomes human again. Like, there's different things. And so that upset me. And then the other thing that upset me about that movie is just, why did they create Marius as Lestat's maker instead of Magnus, and then they made it seem like Marius wasn't a psycho? and who was supposed to be Magnus. It's so confusing. I don't understand why they took two characters, threw one away, and then made it one
Because
character.
one turns Lestat into a vampire and then lights himself on fire and does nothing else.
No,
If you need to cut a character out of a story, you cut a character that does nothing.
But then that's fine. That's fine to remove him, but then why add in a plot point, a separate plot point that Marius is all of a sudden his maker? You could have just left the maker story out of it. Like, that's my problem, is they're like, well, we're just going to say he's this other guy and then just, like, change his entire character. Because Marius is a very important character in the books, but, like, it's complicated, but to make him Lestat's maker makes zero sense. So
I don't know, I feel like that's out of the problems with the movie.
that just
That is a
hurt
really
my
minor
soul.
one.
That hurt my soul, because one of the reasons why Lestat is so super messed up is because when he's turned into a vampire, he has no idea what the fuck just happened to him, and then like he's roaming around, and once he kind of figures it out, he's like, oh, I can help my mom out, and then his mom fucking leaves him too, so he's got all these like severe abandonment issues.
He didn't try to eat her?
No, his mom got horribly
vampire,
sick.
and then there's some weird, uncomfortable, like, incestuous shit with
Incest stuff, yeah. But again, there's no sex in the vampire world, so is it incest? I don't know. It is. It is.
It is.
It totally is.
And then there's some weird sex stuff between the guy that has little boys in his basement.
Wait,
And then,
the Claudia plot line you were cool with, but then when Marius had...
no, it's all really weird. He has multiple little boys locked in his basement, whereas Claudia was the one that was...
basement. They're in his house taking care... They're taking care of
They're
him.
in his
You know what I mean?
Yes, they're in his basement.
It was in, like, ancient Rome or whatever. I don't know.
No, he keeps he has a supply of little boys in his basement. And I was like, I'm done with all of them.
They weren't in his basement. They were, like, his housekeepers, and then he was, like, he was, like, teaching them and all sorts of stuff. But, yeah, it was... Yeah.
And he was fucking them because it's gross and weird.
Because it's Rome.
So
Yikes.
it
Yikes ain't Rome.
it makes me feel good that so far none of us has said we wish we could have talked about Twilight. And the way y'all are talking about this reminds me of what might end up happening if we talk about Twilight.
Oh, man. I'm with the real vampires don't sparkle. Although I do want to watch that Japanese thing that you guys talked about. Said, I don't know.
I really want to write that story now where a vampire trips and bites someone. The meet cute vampirism.
Yeah.
But then what else? I heard that originally Twilight was about fairies.
Yes.
And then someone told her that vampires would sell better.
Oh.
And that's why they sparkle in the sunlight, is because she just like word replaced fairy with vampire.
Yes.
Oh my god. That hurts my soul more. Like, a fairy book would have been way more acceptable. But wait, was the guy still a werewolf, the other guy?
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard what Jacob was. If he wasn't going to be a werewolf.
Well, this was on the first book, so Jacob wasn't a werewolf in the first
Oh, yeah.
book. I listened to a parody reading of Twilight, where the person who read it...
50 Shades of Grey.
No, what it was, it's online. Shaggy reads Twilight, and it's free to listen to. And it's Shaggy Shanahan, who can do a bunch of goofy voices. So, like, he reads Edward like he's Snidely Whiplash from the old, like...
Oh, I've heard of this, yeah.
So whenever it mentions Edward's melodious laugh, he does that...
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So, I kind of wish I could have talked about Shadowhunters because it's such a train wreck, and I have a lot of fun talking about it.
Hey, Kel, did I tell you that I saw Twilight twice?
The first movie?
Yeah. I mean,
Finish the movie.
once to see it, because my friends were like, "Oh, let's watch this piece of crap," and so we watched it and made fun of it the whole time. And
I feel like it's not even good for that because it's really boring.
This was in college, and they got really drunk. And then the second time, it was 3 days later because my friend showed up and goes, "Guys, I got the riff tracks," and so we rewatched it.
I feel like even the riff tracks are disappointing because that's how boring the movie is.
I don't know. I distinctly remember one scene in the riff tracks where they're in the science room and there's an owl strategically, like I think it's a stuffed owl, it's like strategically positioned behind Edward to make it look like he has angel wings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they just kept making fun of that the entire scene.
I read every single one of those books. I tried to watch the first movie, but it was shot so poorly. And I love B-rated movies, but it was shot so poorly that I just could not do it. But I watched it because I was working at a homeless and runaway shelter talking about healthy relationships and respect and consent and all that. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about this book that they were reading and saying, oh, it's like when blah, 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 Edward did this. And I'm all, but what you're talking about doesn't sound respectful. It sounds stalking.
Yeah.
But I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, so before I go on, I'm going to read these books. And oh my gosh, it was like pulling teeth. It's just so bad. Not only is it horrible, like as far as relationships go, but the writing is terrible.
Yeah, I remember like when it came out and everyone was making fun of it. I didn't want to make fun of it until I had actually read it. But
that's why I saw the movie.
I feel like as bad as it is, the venom that is aimed at it is mostly because teenage girls like it. Because a lot, basically anything teenage girls like, if you think about media, is always considered the lowest run thing.
Yeah.
When people talk about the crappiest music, it's pop music that teenage girls like. And so there are just as many poorly written books and as problematic books as Twilight. It's just Twilight gets that venom because
mostly teenage girls like it. That's a good point.
Spinning off of that and how bad it is, the last track on the Killjoys album for My Chemical Romance is called Vampire, and it's because they were making fun of the bands that did music for that movie, because everybody got paid a ton of money to do music for those movies.
Yeah.
So they wrote a song about that. It's the reason why I think Twilight is really upsetting to me in regards to teenage girls liking it is because so many teenage girls, like that being their, not even like their vampire thing, but that being like the thing that they're into, it's the message that it gives about relationships is like really frightening to me. Like that they think it's cool. Like that.
Okay, so I've read a lot of bad stories, a lot of bad vampire fiction, and I feel like the stuff in Twilight is not uncommon in its bad message.
No, Labyrinth. I realized like several years after reading Twilight that holy shit, I was in love with David Bowie, and I would have again said, "Yes, Jared, I'll go with you." and he was totally being. Not only was he a super old adult, like older than other adults,
He's also like gaslighting her all the time, and
totally gaslighting, stalking, lying, manipulating, blaming.
yeah, and I mentioned the October Day stuff earlier, and I really appreciate that it's a supernatural book that doesn't have that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy who's the quote-unquote bad boy love interest is the cat guy, and everything that he does that's like shitty relationship stuff is more due to him being indifferent rather than being actively manipulated. So it's like he disappeared for a month, and she's like, "Where the hell were you?" And he's like, "I had cat things to do."
Yeah.
So it's more that he's unreliable because he's a cat rather than him being actively shitty.
And I will say that is the one thing, the ultimate one thing that True Blood does have going for it is that, like, as dumb and how many mistakes Sookie Stackhouse ends up making, she ends up getting together with the good guy at the end. Like, the guy that's always been there for her.
Here's the thing, though. Bill is not the good guy. Neither.
It's not Bill.
No.
He doesn't get together with Bill.
Who does she get together with?
Damn.
The
That's true in the show. I never watched the last bit of this.
It's no, I'm talking about the books. Sorry.
Oh.
In the books, it ends with her getting together with.
Because in the show, I feel like Sam is really kind of manipulative, and
Bill is a rapist.
And Bill is just a flat-out rapist. And Eric is gaslighting her. And in the books, Sam is just there. So while she ends up with the quote-unquote good guy, the good guy doesn't do a whole lot.
He doesn't. He tries to do things for her at least in the book.
And that makes him the good guy.
What? No, like, he goes and he tries to save her in, like, a bunch of situations, but he's not very powerful, so he can't do much.
Is he not written about as much? He's not focused
not written
on
about as much. The books focus a lot on Bill versus Eric, and then she gets
and then her various Panther.
Yeah, and she gets a few other love interest guys, but they never last very long.
Yeah.
I got kind of annoyed when she broke up with the tiger guy in the books.
Yeah, but that was basically just a sexual relationship. How much did they really have in common?
I mean, okay, so the tiger guy was boring, but she broke up with him because he needed to take care of his sick mom. But she hasn't told Eric and Bill to fuck off when he's raped her and Eric is gaslighting her. So it's Tiger Guy, get the hell out of here because you need to take care of your sick parent. So, I don't know.
All right, y'all, we've been talking for over an hour and a half now.
So we should end it.
How do y'all want to end it?
Everyone should go back my Sorcery 101 Kickstarter that's running right now. Cause it's
I did it.
Vampires and things, and that's what's been popping up on the screen when I've been talking.
All right.
8K in 2 weeks.
And I'm selling stuff on the DMs Guild. If you're a big D&D nerd, you can look up my name.
How do you get to that?
Type in DMSGUILD.com, and then in the search type in my name. I got two things on there now, but I've got 2 other things in the works that'll be up there soon.
What do you do for it?
I made character sheets that are folding that are this have you seen those where you can take a letter-sized piece of paper and fold it to where it becomes a little 8-page book?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they're like about that big. I made a character sheet that's that big, and then I took the same information and then blew it up so that people that have a vision impairment will have a character sheet that they can more easily read if they're able to see large print.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. And I'm writing an adventure right now.
You're what?
Go ahead. I'm writing an adventure right now for it.
Oh, awesome. Do you know when that'll come out?
Well, I submitted for it to do it with the editors of the Adventures League. So I'm not sure when it's going to come out. It might take a while. What about you, Kelly?
Oh, I color comics.
Lots of fancy ones.
You can find me. I try and keep my Comic Vine up to date, because I feel like that's the easiest thing for me to be able to like edit and understand, because it's visual, versus like the comic book database or something like that. And then I keep my Tumblr up to date, which I upload the cover of the book and the preview pages of the interior. I try and do it the week that they come out, but sometimes I end up just uploading like 5 books at the end of the month. Like, I hope you guys got these. When I get really busy, like Black Hood came out last week and I didn't. I haven't uploaded my Tumblr yet. Yeah, which is kellyfscribbles.tumblr.com.
And what else besides Black Hood is on the shelf right now that you've worked on?
The week before this past Wednesday, Bitch Planet and Snowfall came out, and a new chapter of Bombshells will be coming out, I think, next week, which I'm working on today.
Oh, what?
Oh, it's digital, so
yeah.
It's uploaded like right after we finish.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us while you were so busy.
Yeah, I love this show. I'm sad to see it go, because it's fun. It's fun to listen to.
Thank you. All right, Kel, anything else?
Nope. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.